Okay, coming in and going to do some early season scouting. Just post-season scouting last year. So I know where some old rubs are late in the season. So that potentially means there's a buck still alive, but I want to come in here, take some of the information I got from last year. As you can tell, I'm a little bit out of breath. And use that to help locate a buck this year. So I'm on public land. This is what, July 30th, and we're just over 5 weeks out from the opening day of bow season in my home state. So I basically got one trail camera with me. I did some scouting last year, found some really good edge, some really good bedding areas, and all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go straight in, do a real quick speed scout, and then you just saw those two fawns that we saw on this old logging road. And I'm gonna set my camera up and I'm gonna leave. But what I'm gonna do one step further is not just scout. I wanna scout and then get a high probability where possibly there's some deer coming through. And I'm going far enough back to prefer it to be a buck, a mature buck. So this is gonna be a buck scouting trip, not just a doe. I mean, if I'm gonna do a doe scouting trip, I'm gonna be looking for different aspects, but this is gonna be for a mature buck, AKA the ghost. I always call them the ghost because they're few and far between. I think I read somewhere in one state it was 1 in 100 for a 3.5-year-old or bigger in that state. So that's 1%. So that makes it really tough. So we're gonna go in there and I'm gonna scout and try to get enough detail to say, this is a good spot for a stand, and I'm gonna hang up my trail camera and let it get some intel for me, and start collecting that data. That way I go in and I hunt. If I don't see anything, I get down. I want to come back out and bring my camera with me and see what we got. So we're going to ease on up here. Okay, real quick, I want to show you guys something. And I always, well, not always, but I try to show this on most of my videos. It's when you're out looking, you're trying to figure out, okay, what's the deer eating? And we know they eat acorns and green vegetation, things like that. I think I jumped another deer. But look through here at this vegetation on this creek. See where all these have been nipped off? You see how low it is out through there? And then the height gradually gets picked up. So there's a browse line. Typically on these creek banks and areas where you've got a substantial amount of water, even damp areas, you're gonna have more vegetation. But the deer have definitely been in here eating these type of weeds. I call them water reeds, but anytime you're going in, if you see leaves that have been pulled off and it looks like it's been just broken and peeled off versus sheared off with something sharp, that's a deer. So we're gonna keep easing on up here. And as I stated before, we're doing some speed scouting today, but we're speed scouting for that mature buck. Of course, in the Midwest, that would be a trophy buck, but here in North Carolina, it's probably 80 to 100 inch 8-point. So we're going to keep easing on up here. We're going to go up, come back down. We're not going to come back down the same way. We want to do additional scouting, so don't use the same path. Go up one way, come down another, or vice versa. Whichever's the easiest. As I ascend, I take the path of least resistance. Of course, the deer do that too. So hopefully it don't rain. We'll get this trail camera set up and get some good information. So we'll be ready when opening day comes around. Okay, early spring, it was really dry. And if you're someone that raises a garden like myself, you actually had to do a considerable amount of watering. But here now, late summer, it's starting to rain a little bit, so water levels are coming up. Last year, these were considerably lower, so it was kind of dry. No, wasn't kind of, it was dry last year also. So we're gonna keep on trekking it. Okay, I'm gonna do this pretty quick. Look around See how thick this is? And if you go about 100 yards east, open timber, tall canopy, no understory. Look how thick this is. And look what I found right here. Big red oak right in the middle of this. What's leading to the red oak? It's trails. Opens up right here. Fresh droppings. There's more droppings. Look how thick this is. Now if you own public land like I am, this is national forest. And I am about 3 miles deep, so it's gonna be a 6-mile round trip. But if you're saying you don't have time for that, I'm gonna do this one time, that's it. I found an area where I believe a mature buck be bedded up. It's far enough away from everyone else because you got to do a lot of hiking to get here. I got a food source too, right in the middle of this stuff. Trails leading to it, obvious deer droppings. And I did check the acorn, that red oak is dropping acorns. We can put the trail camera up here, and I'm getting out, and we won't be back until the season opens. Okay, it's starting to rain, but like all veteran hunters, I brought my rain gear. Okay, real quick, I bailed out of that area. I'm about 300 yards from where I set my trail camera up. I'm pretty pumped up about that spot. I dropped a pin, that way I can go back and look on the maps, look at my phone, and see what else is adjacent to that trail camera location. Now this is public land. It is pressured really hard, and I'm hoping I didn't spook the deer by putting the trail camera out. And typically I wear gloves. And I forgot my gloves. Also forgot my rain gear. So I'm getting a little shelter here right now from this tree. But I dropped the pin, that way I can go back and look at the maps, and we'll do that too, do some more virtual scouting, see what's around it. And you're saying, well, what good is this? You spent just a couple hours. But I got a high confidence level that I'm in a good enough spot to hang a stand. It's not gonna be a gar hole. I know there's deer in there, okay? So basically all we're gonna do is gonna let the camera sit, gather all this data. It's gonna be there for just a little over a month. Slip back up in here, and I'll have to bring a saddle in. I'm coming late to the saddle party, but looks like I'm about to join it. And set up close to where that trail camera is. Probably do it on the afternoon, because if they're feeding on those red oaks, I'll bust them out of there in the morning. So it'll be an afternoon, and that way I've got a good visual where I can shoot, because public land, you can't cut the limbs. So got all that done. I'm gonna head back down. Like I said, I've got the pins, I've got all the information I need to go back and look at this on the map. So we want to ease on out of here. And as a matter of fact, when it's coming out, I saw two more deer, 2 more does, and I jumped 2 fawns that still had spots. So this is late July, almost 1st of August. So you're looking at those deer being bred, or that doe being bred, what, January? Somewhere around in there, almost February. So a lot of activity in here, but hopefully we'll get us a mature buck, and that's what we're after. Okay, I was showing you that thick section just down below me here, down below this creek bank. And, you know, back in here again, pretty much rained us out the other day. It started raining really hard. Yeah, and I didn't have my rain gear. You know how that goes. Brought it with me today. Skies are clear, but actually partly cloudy, so we'll see. But anyway, what I want to do is I want to get back and I want to talk to you about scouting for a mature buck. And I read an article, it's probably been, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years ago. And the person that wrote the article said killing a mature buck is no more difficult than shooting a mature doe. I was like, man, you missed it. Not even close. Just by the statistical standpoint, just if you look at the numbers, there's not a lot of mature bucks out there. I mean, how often do you walk in the woods and see a doe? I mean, if mature bucks like that were as easy to kill as does, almost everybody would have one on the wall. So that's wrong. That was just incorrect. But you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and obviously I'm giving you mine as well. But from my experience, if you're scouting for mature buck, you gotta be doing something different. And I actually have my gloves on today, and it's kind of bothered me a little bit that I didn't have my gloves on the other day. Fortunately, we had that heavy rain. Actually, when I got out, it rained a lot harder, so hopefully it was able to dilute my scent somewhat. And I always try to put my trail cameras higher than the deer, and I don't put them on the trails. I put them off to the side. So hopefully I didn't alarm that deer. And like I said, it's about 5 weeks till our season opens up. So hopefully there'll be minimal impact on that. So now while we're talking about that, I want to get into speed scouting. And this is just what I consider speed scouting. And obviously now I'm giving you my opinion. So to me, you can break it down in several different ways. How long you're in an area, how far do you travel in that area, and how often or what's your frequency of returning to that area to scout. Those 3 things right there. And I believe in order to make it a low impact scouting, speed scouting, you get in there, boom, covert operation, you look around, find what you believe gives you a high probability of getting on a buck, and get out. And then you don't go back. You wait until the opportune time to go in there and hunt that stand. So that's just a couple of ideas that I have, or that's my perspective on speed scouting. So I'm going back in here today, and we went up and hit that really thick, dense section. And like I said, there's other dense sections, and just to the, I guess that would be the north, yeah, north of me, is private land. I can hunt that fringe or that border there and maybe get some deer coming back and forth. But there's other pockets in here, and I'm not saying that all the big bucks are up there where I put that trail camera. That's not the case. They may hole up in some dense area that's, you know, half, quarter acre in size, or some steep terrain like this right here. See how steep this is and dense? They could bed in there, and hardly anyone that I know of hunts down in that area. I mean, I've hunted a few times myself. So a buck can hide anywhere. You just got to narrow down the places he's not going to be and try to hunt in places that he is going to be. So today I'm gonna go up, I'm gonna hit this ridge right here, go to the top, and just circle around, go in and out these hollers. I'm looking for apples, looking for acorns. Okay, I'm still doing some scouting, and actually did find 2 trees that have apples. So obviously I'm familiar with this area. So if I know there's apples in here, obviously there's a lot of other hunters that know as well. So you can expect this is gonna be a high pressure area. So I've got an apple tree over here. You can't see the apples. They're at the very top of the tree. Now down low, I didn't find the apples. And a lot of times that happens in steep valleys or steep mountains like this, because the cold air is heavier, so it sinks to the bottom. We had some late frost this year, so I'm sure it killed the blooms. So the higher elevations, they actually survive. So there is some apples there. So this would be a good location to set up for a doe. You know, I'm not saying that a buck's not going to come through here. I'm sure there've been a lot of bucks shot in here, you know, over the years, and especially during the rut. You know, if a buck is following a doe or he's out moving, there is a potential to come through here. I'm just saying that getting closer to the thicker area with like the bedding area like that I found, you know, that buck doesn't even have to move early in the season. And then once he's in the rut, you don't know where he's going to be. So you may be able to narrow down or almost pinpoint. Well, I don't want to say pinpoint, but you can narrow down the amount of acreage that you've got to hunt. Remember, you're going to put a tree stand up and try to get a shot within 30 yards. That's a 60-yard diameter. So when you're doing that in 300-400 acres, that's pretty tough. So, you know, the area that I found over there actually has a creek adjacent to it. So there's water there, there's food, there's cover. I didn't see any rubs, but once I found that red oak, found those fresh droppings and those main trails coming out, That's basically when I said, okay, I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna ease on out. But on down below, when I got, you know, like I said in the other video, about 300 yards away, there was more sign. Now, I don't know if those trails lead up to where I was at, but there was some rubs down a little bit lower. But yeah, this is the fun part about, well, one of the fun parts about deer hunting is getting out and scouting, trying to put in a strategy and a game plan to be able to harvest mature deer. So I've got one main apple tree right here. I know where this area is at. I don't even have to pin this area because or I don't have to pin this location because I'm that familiar with this area. So I'm just gonna ease on back through here. I'm looking for some making trees and I'm just gonna head on out. Like I said, I'm not gonna stay long. Okay, this is one of the many reasons why you scout. I don't know if you guys can see. At the very top of this apple tree, this tree right here is loaded. So it's one of the heaviest ones I've seen. And I want you to look. Look at this trail coming in right through here. And there's actually 1, 2, 3, I see 3, 4. There's actually 4 apple trees in here. So if these start dropping, it's gonna be a really good place. So here's another good place to ambush a doe. Now, like I said, a buck will come in here too, but he may be coming in here late at night, a mature buck. You might be able to get an immature buck in here. So this is 2 locations, and look at this. I'm already starting to see how the vegetation, how it's beat down right here. So the wind's knocking out some of the apples, looks like. And the deer are already coming down here and starting to pick up the ones that hit the ground. So we got 2 really good locations with some soft mass. But you gotta remember that. You know, that's part of the scouting, putting the plan together to be able to harvest something. In my state, you can take 4 does, 2 bucks, and definitely the buck doe ratio is completely out of balance here. You know, I was telling you guys earlier that I read one article about a state that said a mature buck was 1% of the population, so 1 out of 100. It may be worse up here. So anyway, this looks like a really good spot. All right, here's a pretty good tree. I would like to get a little bit further away. I'm just looking right now. That does look like a pretty good tree right there to get in. Just have to play the wind. So this is east, I'm facing east right now, so we just have to remember the wind direction on this deal. But you know, we're gonna do a video on tree stands and how that can play a major role in it. The reason why you gotta worry about the wind or be concerned with the wind is because you're walking in. You're not always in the tree 25, 30 feet up. So unless you guys are parachuting in or doing some fancy maneuvers that I don't know about, you're having to walk in. So if you walk in, and even though you can get 25, 30 feet up and get out of the thermals and get out of the wind direction, once you walk in, you've already let your scent blow in front of you and go to the deer. So still gotta be careful about all that stuff too. There's a lot of stuff you gotta be careful about. So I'm gonna ease on down. Coming down to a bench. I like hunting benches. Those are really good, especially when bucks are using those to generate scrapes, get on the downwind side, but we can talk about that later. So this is early season scouting, but this is mature buck scouting. And I kept my gloves on. Normally I only put them on when I put my trail camera up. But I figured, you know what, I may try it this year and just leave my gloves on when I do my scouting and see if it makes a difference. You know, obviously there's a long period of time between now and opening season. You can have rain and everything else, so your scent should dissipate by then. But it doesn't hurt to be careful. The thing about gloves is you touch your face, touch your clothes, everything else, you minimize their effectiveness too. So we're gonna ease on out through here, get out of this stinging nettle. Okay, I'm on this bench right now. I'm looking around and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I mean, just a dozen red oaks right in this area. So they're dropping acorns. There's some more. This is always a good sign and a bad sign, because when there's this much food abundant, then you can't pinpoint one specific location. That's why on that area up there, I'm pretty pumped up about, because it's a red oak right in the bedding area, and the buck doesn't have to move far. Yeah, there's plenty of acorns in here. From my experience on hunting benches, you need to hunt one side or the other. Hunting right on top of a bench, I haven't been too successful, but you know, some of you guys out there may be successful. But when you got plenty of acorns like this, the deer are going to be there. It's just a lot of times they may be nocturnal. So when he's on down off this ridge, off this bench, really you can just call it an oak flat. And I'll walk over here to the edge and I'll show you what it turns into. Now, see how steep it gets down through there? So when you're looking on your topographical maps, look for those really tight lines and look for the wide lines, and then tight lines above it. That'll give you a good indication if there's a bench in there. So we came in, this is our second time in here. So I've spent about, it was 3 hours the first day. It's been about 2 hours. So I got 5 hours in. I'm going in, going out. I didn't go back to the same place. So that's low impact scouting. I went there one time. I've got a pin dropped. I got my trail camera in there. That's going to be an afternoon hunt. I have to go in there and hunt that food source on that bedding area. And then I've got 2 apple trees on this ridge, and then this oak flat on this bench right here behind me. It's loaded with acorns. So we're doing some low impact scouting. I don't need to come back. There's no sense in me coming back and forth, in and out, because the acorns are going to continue to fall here. I don't know when those apple trees are going to start falling. Hopefully they'll hold on until after September. But the deer will still be pretty easily to pattern coming into those food sources. So remember, this is speed scouting. We're looking for mature bucks. But at the same time, you know, coming out, found a couple locations to be able to hunt a doe too. Now, one thing I would recommend is having a backup. I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket up there. And that's a long hike in. And it's actually about 2 miles. I said three miles. So the exaggerations, you know, he was this big. The exaggerations already started. So, but it's only about 2 miles up there. But it's still a long way, and I'm not going to drag him out that far. I think I've drug him out a mile before, but it's a long process and spend a lot of time and energy on it. So you're gonna have to pack that one out. So I'm thinking in my mind, okay, I've got to have some backup and some options. And it'd be nice to have something a little bit closer, but I need to go to some other public land. I'm still on national forest. This is still public land. There's just, I think there's 3,082 acres, something like that in here to hunt. And always have a backup, always have that contingency plan if one area doesn't pan out. But I'm still pretty optimistic. And even that area up there has still got more room for me able to go in and be able to scout a different place. Keep your scouting covert, not just for your hunting buddies, but for the deer. And that's why I'm just coming in here, short durations going out, and plus for everyone that's got a limited amount of time. You know, you only got that week, 2 weeks to hunt. I'm going to show you some strategies where you can come in, do a minimal amount of scouting, don't spook the deer, and be successful. So we're going to ease on out of here, go grab some lunch.